There are promises we make as children that we believe will last forever. Michael Chin made one such promise on a rainy afternoon in 1968, standing beneath a maple tree with mud on his shoes and tears in his eyes. He was 11 years old, and he swore to his best friend that he would come back. 57 years later, he finally kept that promise. But what he found waiting for him would break his heart in ways he never imagined. Spring Valley was the kind of town where everyone knew your name, where the same families had lived for generations, and where the corner store still sold penny candy long after pennies stopped mattering. In 1968, it was a place frozen in time, with tree-lined streets and white picket fences, where children played until the streetlights came on and mothers called them home for dinner. Michael Chin lived on Elm Street, in a modest house with blue shutters and a front porch that creaked when you walked across it. His father worked at the textile mill on the edge of town, and his mother tended a garden that bloomed with roses every summer. Michael was an only child, quiet and thoughtful, the kind of boy who preferred books to baseball, who would rather watch clouds than chase after them. Next door lived Thomas Walker. Tommy, everyone called him. Where Michael was reserved, Tommy was a firecracker, all scraped knees and wild laughter, with dirt perpetually under his fingernails and a grin that could light up the darkest room. They were opposites in every way that mattered, which is perhaps why they became inseparable. They'd met on the first day of first grade, when Tommy had tripped over his own shoelaces and face planted into a puddle. While the other children laughed, Michael had walked over, extended his small hand, and helped Tommy to his feet. Tommy had looked up at him with muddy water dripping from his chin and said, "You're my best friend now." And just like that they were. For 5 years, they were more than friends. They were brothers in all the ways that mattered. They built forts in the woods behind Tommy's house, forts with walls made of fallen branches and roofs of old bedsheets stolen from their mother's linen closets. They caught fireflies in mason jars on summer nights, watching them glow like tiny stars in their hands. They traded comic books and shared secrets, the kind of secrets only children can keep, promises whispered in the dark that felt sacred and unbreakable. Tommy's bedroom window faced Michael's, just 20 feet across the space between their houses. At night, they would flash their desk lamps in patterns, Morse code they'd invented themselves, saying goodnight across the darkness. 3 short flashes meant, "See you tomorrow." 2 long ones meant, "Something important to tell you." 1 flash, held for 3 seconds, meant, "You're my best friend forever." But forever, as children often learn, is not a promise the world is willing to keep. It was April when everything changed. The dogwoods had just begun to bloom, painting Spring Valley in shades of white and pink, when Michael's father came home from work with news that shattered their small world. The textile mill was closing. The company was moving operations overseas. He'd been offered a position at a factory in Oregon, nearly 3,000 miles away. They would be leaving at the end of the school year. Michael remembered the exact moment his mother told him. She'd been chopping vegetables for dinner, the knife making that rhythmic sound against the cutting board, when she'd stopped mid-cut and turned to face him. Her eyes were red, and he knew she'd been crying. "Sweetheart," she'd said softly, "we need to talk about something." When she told him they were moving, the words didn't make sense at first. Moving? But they'd always lived here. This was home. How could they just leave? And then the full weight of it crashed over him like a wave. Tommy. He would have to leave Tommy. He'd run out of the house without finishing his dinner, across the lawn, up Tommy's porch steps, and burst through the door without knocking. Tommy's mother was used to this. The boys treated both houses as their own. Tommy had been in his room, working on a model airplane, glue on his fingers and concentration on his face. When he looked up and saw Michael's expression, the smile fell from his face. "What's wrong?" Michael couldn't speak. The words were stuck somewhere in his throat, tangled with the tears he was trying not to shed. Tommy set down the model airplane and stood up. "Mickey? What happened?" That's what Tommy called him. Mickey. No one else did. It was their thing, like the flashlight signals and the secret fort. "We're moving," Michael finally managed to say, and the words came out choked and small. To Oregon. At the end of the school year. Tommy's face went pale. What? No. No, you can't. You live here. This is where you live. I know. But we're building the tree house. We were going to start middle school together. You promised you'd teach me to swim this summer. I know. Michael's voice cracked. I don't want to go, Tommy. I told my parents I don't want to go, but they said we have to. My dad needs the job. They'd stood there in Tommy's room, two 11-year-old boys trying to process the incomprehensible. The world of adults had reached into their perfect bubble and popped it, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of lasts. The last time they rode their bikes to the creek. The last time they shared a chocolate milkshake at Benson's Diner, 2 straws in 1 glass. The last Saturday matinee at the Palace Theater, watching cowboys on the big screen while eating popcorn from a shared bucket. Every moment felt precious and painful, like trying to hold water in cupped hands, watching it slip through your fingers no matter how tightly you held on. Tommy started acting out. He picked fights with kids at school, got detention twice, showed up at Michael's house with black eyes he wouldn't explain. Michael's mother said it was Tommy's way of dealing with the pain, that sometimes anger is easier than sadness. But Michael understood. Tommy was trying to feel something other than the ache of losing his best friend. They made plans, the way children do, plans that felt real and possible in the moment. They would write letters every single day. They would call each other every Sunday. When they turned 18, they would move to the same city, get an apartment together, and be roommates like in the TV shows they watched. They would never really be apart, not really. Distance was just geography. Their friendship was bigger than miles. But there was one promise, one final promise, that would echo through the decades. It was Michael's last day in Spring Valley. The moving truck had come and gone, taking everything that made the house on Elm Street home. The walls were bare, the rooms empty, filled only with the echoes of 5 years of life. Michael's mother had already left for Oregon with most of their belongings. His father would drive them across the country the next morning, but they had one final night in their empty house, sleeping on air mattresses in rooms that no longer felt like theirs. The afternoon was overcast, threatening rain, the sky heavy and gray like the weight in Michael's chest. He and Tommy had avoided talking about this day, as if not acknowledging it might make it not real. But here it was, unavoidable and crushing. They decided to go to their fort one last time. They walked through the woods in silence, feet following a path they'd worn into the earth over countless adventures. The fort looked smaller now, less magical than it had seemed when they'd built it. The bedsheet roof sagged in places, branches had shifted, and the whole structure looked fragile and temporary. Which, Michael supposed, it always had been. They just never noticed. They sat inside, shoulder to shoulder, either knowing what to say. Tommy picked at the ground with a stick, drawing patterns in the dirt. Michael stared at the trees beyond the fort entrance, watching the leaves rustle in the wind that smelled like approaching rain. "I don't want you to go," Tommy finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to go either." "Then don't. Stay here. Live with us. My mom wouldn't mind. You could share my room." Michael smiled sadly. "You know I can't." "Why not? People do that. I saw it in a movie once. A kid whose parents had to move, and his friend's family took him in so he could finish school. That's not real life, Tommy. But it could be." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Fat raindrops began to fall, pattering against the bedsheet roof, finding holes and dripping through. Neither boy moved. "I'm going to come back," Michael said suddenly, the words coming out with conviction he didn't know he had. "I promise you, Tommy. I'm going to come back." Tommy looked at him, eyes shining with tears he was too proud to shed. "When? I don't know. But I will. Maybe when we're grown up. Maybe when I can do what I want, when no one can tell me I have to leave. I'll come back to Spring Valley, and I'll find you, and we'll catch up. Like no time passed at all. You promise?" "I promise." Michael held out his pinky finger, the way they'd sealed every important oath since they were 6 years old. Tommy wrapped his pinky around Michael's, and they shook, a covenant between brothers. "I'll wait for you," Tommy said. "However long it takes. When you come back, I'll be here." The rain picked up, coming down harder now, soaking through the bedsheet, dripping onto their heads and shoulders. They should have run back to their houses and should have sought shelter, but neither moved. This was their last moment, and they were holding onto it with everything they had. "We should go to the tree," Tommy said. "Our tree. One more time." The maple tree stood at the edge of the woods where they met Tommy's backyard, a massive old giant with branches that stretched like arms toward the sky. It was their tree, had been since they'd carved their initials into its trunk 3 years ago. TW+MC, surrounded by a lopsided heart that Michael had drawn while Tommy kept watch for adults who might scold them for damaging the tree. They ran through the rain, arriving at the maple tree soaked to the skin, hair plastered to their foreheads, and clothes clinging to their bodies. Tommy pulled out his pocket knife, the one his grandfather had given him, and carved something new into the bark, just below their initials. Michael watched, rain running into his eyes, as Tommy carefully cut each letter. "BRB 1968. Be right back," Tommy said, looking at Michael with fierce determination. "That's you? You're coming back. And I'm going to be here waiting, and when you come back, we'll look at this tree and remember today. Remember this promise." Michael's throat was tight. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Thunder crashed overhead, and lightning split the sky, illuminating everything in harsh white light for just a moment. The tree, Tommy's face, the carved letters, the rain falling around them like the world was crying. They stood there until Tommy's mother called him home, her voice cutting through the rain. They looked at each other one last time. There were things Michael wanted to say, important things, but he couldn't find the words. How do you say goodbye to someone who is part of your soul? "See you later," Tommy finally said, forcing a smile. "See you later," Michael echoed. Tommy held up his hand, making their secret sign, 3 fingers raised, then 2, then 1. Their way of saying, "Best friends always, no matter what." Michael returned it, and then Tommy turned and ran toward his house, disappearing into the rain and the growing darkness. Michael stood there alone, one hand pressed against the maple tree, feeling the rough bark under his palm, the carved letters under his fingertips. BRB. Be right back. A promise carved in wood. He didn't know then that it would be 57 years before he kept it. The next morning, Michael and his father loaded into their car before dawn. The house on Elm Street looked like a stranger's house now, empty and hollow. As they pulled out of the driveway, Michael looked back one last time. Tommy's bedroom window was dark. They hadn't said another goodbye. Maybe Tommy couldn't face it. Maybe Michael couldn't either. The drive to Oregon took 5 days. Michael barely remembered it. He spent the time staring out the window, watching America roll past in a blur of highways and rest stops and motels that all looked the same. His father tried to talk to him, tried to tell him about their new life, about the opportunities, about how he'd make new friends. But Michael couldn't hear it. A part of him had stayed behind in Spring Valley, beneath a maple tree in the rain. Oregon was different in every way that mattered. The air smelled like pine instead of honeysuckle. The streets were wider, newer, and less lived in. Their new house was modern, with big windows and a yard that had no history, no worn paths through woods where best friends had walked 1,000 times. Michael's new bedroom faced a fence, not another window with a friend flashing goodnight in Morse code across the darkness. True to their word, Michael and Tommy wrote letters. At first, they came weekly, long detailed accounts of their new lives. Tommy wrote about starting middle school without him, about the new kid who sat in Michael's old desk, about how the fort had fallen apart in a storm. Michael wrote about Oregon rain that fell differently than Spring Valley rain, about the kids at his new school who didn't understand his jokes, about how the Pacific Ocean was beautiful but lonely. But children's lives move fast. New experiences pile up, new friends appear, the immediate present demands attention. The letters became monthly, then sporadic, then rare. By the time they were 16, they'd stopped writing altogether. It wasn't intentional, wasn't a conscious decision. It just happened. The way so many childhood friendships fade, not with an ending but with a slow dissolution, like sugar stirred into water until you can't see it anymore but know it's still there, somewhere, changed into something else. Michael grew up. He went to college, studying architecture because he loved the idea of building things that would last. He met a woman named Sarah at a coffee shop where they both reached for the same book on the community shelf. They married when he was 25, had 2 children, a daughter named Emma and a son named David. He built a career designing schools and libraries, buildings meant to serve communities, meant to become part of people's lives the way Spring Valley had once been part of his. He thought about Tommy sometimes, usually late at night or during quiet moments. Wondered where he was, what he was doing, and if he remembered their friendship with the same bittersweetness that Michael did. A few times over the years he'd almost looked him up. The internet made it possible to find anyone, theoretically. But something always stopped him. Fear, maybe. Fear that Tommy wouldn't remember. Fear that he'd remember but wouldn't care. Fear that the friendship that had meant everything to 11-year-old Michael had been just another childhood phase for Tommy, something he'd moved past and forgotten. So Michael didn't look. He kept that part of his heart sealed away, a precious memory he visited sometimes but never disturbed. Spring Valley became a story he told his children, sanitized and simplified. "I had a best friend when I was your age," he'd say. "We did everything together." He never told them about the promise, about the maple tree, or about standing in the rain swearing to come back. Some promises felt too sacred to share. Life moved forward the way it always does, in a current you can't fight even when you want to. Michael's children grew up, graduated, and started their own lives. Emma became a teacher and married a kind man who made her laugh. David moved to New York to work in finance, and called every Sunday without fail. Sarah retired from her nursing career, and they talked about traveling, about all the places they'd go now that they had time. Then Sarah got sick. It started small, fatigue she blamed on age, a cough that wouldn't go away. By the time they caught it, the cancer had spread. The doctors gave her 2 years. She lived for 3, fighting every day with a grace that broke Michael's heart and made him love her more than he thought possible. She died on a Tuesday morning in autumn, with golden leaves falling past the hospital window and Michael holding her hand, just as he'd held it for 42 years of marriage. The grief was unlike anything he'd ever known. It wasn't sharp and sudden like the pain of leaving Spring Valley had been. It was deep and vast, an ocean he had to learn to swim in, knowing he'd never reach the shore. His children worried about him. They called constantly, visited often, and encouraged him to sell the house and to move closer to one of them. But Michael couldn't. The house held Sarah in every corner, and he wasn't ready to let that go. He was 74 years old, living alone in a house full of memories, when the letter arrived. It came on a Thursday in March, forwarded through a series of addresses, bearing postmarks from Spring Valley, Virginia. Michael almost threw it away, thinking it was junk mail. But something made him look closer at the return address. There was no name, just the street. 442 Maple Drive, Spring Valley. His hands shook as he opened it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, careful, and formal, the script of someone who didn't write by hand often anymore. He had to sit down at the kitchen table to read it. "Dear Mr. Chin, you don't know me, but my name is Patricia Walker. My brother was Thomas Walker. I'm writing to you because I found your name, an old address and some of his things after he passed away last month." The words blurred. Michael had to stop reading, had to breathe, and had to process what he'd just seen. Tommy was gone. Tommy, who'd been 11 years old forever in Michael's memory, who'd carved BRB into a tree trunk in the rain, was gone. He forced himself to continue reading. "My brother never married and never had children of his own. He worked as a carpenter here in Spring Valley his whole life, building houses and furniture, working with his hands the way our father taught him. He was a good man, Mr. Chin. A quiet man. He kept to himself mostly, but he was always kind, always ready to help a neighbor or fix something for free if someone couldn't afford it. I'm writing because of something I found in his workshop after he died. He had a box there, kept up on a high shelf where he could see it every day but where it wouldn't get in the way of his work. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all from you, all from when you were boys. He'd kept every single one. And there was a journal too, Mr. Chin. He wrote in it sometimes, not every day but often enough. And your name was in it, over and over, spanning 57 years. He wrote about you the way someone writes about faith. Like you were something he believed in even when he couldn't see you. He wrote about the promise you made, about how you said you'd come back. And he believed you. Right up until the end, he believed you. I don't know if this letter will reach you. I don't know if you remember my brother or if you'll care. But I found your last known address in one of the old letters, and I've been trying to track you down because I think he'd want you to know. He waited for you. He never said it out loud, never talked about you to anyone but me, and even then only rarely. But he waited. There's one more thing. That old maple tree where you two apparently carved your initials? He bought the property around it 15 years ago when it was going to be sold and developed. He bought 3 acres just to protect that tree. He maintained a walking path to it and kept it clear and safe. I'm selling the property now, but I wanted you to know what he did. And I wanted you to know that if you ever want to visit Spring Valley again to see the tree one more time, you should come soon. The new owners take possession in 3 months. I'm sorry for your loss, though I know you lost him a long time ago. But I thought you should know that he never lost you. Sincerely, Patricia Walker. Michael sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours without moving, the letter in his hands, tears running down his face unchecked. Tommy was gone. And Michael had never come back. He'd promised, had sworn it on their last day together, had sealed it with their childhood oath, and he never kept it. For 57 years Tommy had waited, and Michael had been living his life, building his career, raising his family, and forgetting the promise that had meant everything to an 11-year-old boy standing in the rain. The guilt was crushing. But underneath it, fighting through it, was something else, a pull, strong and insistent, like a rope tied around his heart, tugging him east. He'd broken his promise to Tommy while he was alive. But maybe he could keep it now. Maybe, coming back, didn't have to mean Tommy would be there. Maybe it just meant returning to the place where they promised each other forever, to the tree that Tommy had protected, to the friendship that had never really ended, just changed form. Michael's hands were still shaking when he picked up his phone and called Emma. "Dad? Are you okay? You sound. I need to tell you about a friend I had when I was a boy," Michael said. "And then I need to ask you to help me plan a trip." 2 weeks later, Michael flew into Richmond, Virginia, and rented a car for the 2-hour drive to Spring Valley. His children had worried about him traveling alone at his age, but he'd insisted. This was something he needed to do by himself. Emma had offered to come with him, and he'd almost said yes, but at the last moment he'd realized this journey needed to be solitary. It was about completing something that had started when he was 11 years old, and that boy needed to make this trip alone. The Virginia countryside rolled past his window, green and lush in the spring warmth. It looked familiar and foreign at the same time, like a place he'd known in a dream. He looked at the route on maps 100 times, memorizing the turns, but his hands still tightened on the steering wheel as he got closer. What would he find? Would anything be the same? Would it feel like home, or would 57 years have erased everything he remembered? The sign appeared around a bend. Spring Valley, population 4,200, founded 1823. It was new and modern, not the weathered wooden sign he remembered. But seeing those words, Spring Valley, did something to his chest, tightened something that had been loose for decades. The town had changed, of course it had. The main street now had a Starbucks where Benson's Diner used to be. The Palace Theater was gone, replaced by a strip mall. New subdivisions sprawled where there had once been farmland. But underneath the changes, the bones of the town remained. The same oak trees lined the same streets, just older, their branches reaching further. The same church steeple pointed toward the same sky. The same river ran through the same valley, indifferent to the passage of time. Michael had booked a room at a bed and breakfast on the edge of town. The owner, a cheerful woman in her 60s named Margaret, checked him in with the kind of friendly curiosity small towns specialize in. "What brings you to Spring Valley?" she asked, and Michael found himself telling her the truth, or part of it. "I grew up here. Lived here until I was 11. Came back to see it again. Oh, how wonderful! A homecoming. Let me know if you need help finding anything. Things have changed a bit, but the heart of Spring Valley is still the same." Michael wanted to believe that. He dropped his bags in his room and immediately got back in the car. He wasn't ready to rest. He needed to see Elm Street. Needed to see where he'd lived, where Tommy had lived, and where their whole world had existed. The street was still there, still called Elm Street, though half the elm trees had been replaced with maples after Dutch elm disease swept through in the 80s. The houses were older now, showing their age in ways that made Michael's heart ache. His old house, 442 Elm Street, was painted a different color, sage green instead of white with blue shutters. The porch had been enclosed. A swing set stood in the backyard where his mother's rose garden had been. Tommy's house next door was still yellow, though the paint was peeling. The front porch sagged slightly. It looked tired, lived in, and loved but not quite kept up. A "for sale" sign stood in the front yard, and Michael realized with a jolt that this must be part of Patricia's estate's sale. Tommy had lived here his whole life. Had lived and died in the house where he'd grown up, 20 feet from where Michael's bedroom window used to be. Michael parked the car and sat there, engine off, just looking. A woman was jogging down the street with a golden retriever. A mail truck drove past. Life continued here, oblivious to the ghosts Michael could see everywhere he looked. He saw himself at 7 years old, racing across this lawn. Saw Tommy bursting out that yellow front door, yelling for Mickey to wait up. Saw two boys who thought they'd be together forever, who had no idea that forever was about to end. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, trying to steady himself. Then he got out of the car and walked to Tommy's old house. The for sale sign had a lockbox, but he didn't need to go inside. He just needed to stand here, to be present in this place that had mattered so much. "Can I help you?" Michael turned to find an elderly woman watching him from the next house over, his old house. She was standing on the enclosed porch, a cup of coffee in her hands, curiosity and caution in her expression. "I'm sorry," Michael said. "I didn't mean to lurk. I used to live here. In your house, actually. A long time ago." Her expression softened immediately. "Oh, you're the one Patricia mentioned might be coming. Michael, right?" Michael's heart skipped. "You knew Tommy?" Everyone knew Tommy. He was the kind of neighbor everyone wishes they had. Fixed my porch when it started rotting, wouldn't let me pay him. Shoveled my driveway every winter for the last 20 years. She smiled sadly. "We miss him. The whole street does. He was steady, you know? Always there, always kind. The kind of man who makes a place feel like home." "When did he?" Michael couldn't finish the question. "February 14th, Valentine's Day. Heart attack in his sleep. Patricia found him the next morning. The doctor said it was quick, that he didn't suffer. That's something, I suppose." Valentine's Day. The day for love and hearts. There was something both cruel and fitting about that. Was he happy? Michael asked, then immediately felt foolish. How could this woman know that? How could anyone? But she considered the question seriously. "I think so. In his way. He wasn't lonely, if that's what you're asking. He had friends and had the community. He seemed content. But..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Patricia once told me, after she'd had a few glasses of wine at a neighborhood party, that Tommy had loved someone once. A long time ago. And that he never quite moved past it. She didn't say who or what happened. But she said her brother had been waiting his whole life for someone to come home." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. He had to grip the porch railing to steady himself. The woman noticed. "Are you all right? You've gone pale. Come sit down, let me get you some water." "No, I'm okay. Thank you. He took a shaky breath. "I need to go. I need to see the tree." "The tree?" "The maple tree. On the property he bought." Understanding crossed her face. "Ah, that tree. Yes. Patricia mentioned you might want to see it. It's about a 10-minute walk through the woods, if the path is still clear. Or you can drive around and park on Maple Drive. There's a trailhead marker there now." Michael thanked her and hurried back to his car. His hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. Tommy had been waiting his whole life for someone to come home. And Michael had been in Oregon, in California, living his life, while Tommy waited in Spring Valley, protecting a tree where 2 boys had carved a promise into the bark. He found Maple Drive easily. The trailhead was marked with a simple wooden sign. Walker Nature Path. The path itself was well maintained, cleared of overgrowth, with wood chips laid down to prevent erosion. Tommy had done this. Had created this path, had maintained it, and had made sure anyone could walk to the tree safely. Michael walked slowly, his 74-year-old knees protesting, his breath coming harder than it should. The woods looked different and the same. The trees were taller and thicker. The underbrush had changed. But the feeling of the place, the quality of light through the leaves, and the smell of earth and growing things, that was the same. He and Tommy had run through these woods 1,000 times. They'd been giants then, explorers, adventurers in an endless wilderness that was really just 3 acres between 2 backyards. And then he saw it. The maple tree. It stood in a small clearing, exactly as he remembered but impossibly larger. The trunk had to be 4 feet across now, the branches spreading wide like arms welcoming him home. Someone, Tommy, it had to be Tommy, had built a low bench nearby, simple and sturdy, positioned perfectly to sit and look at the tree. Michael's legs gave out. He sank onto the bench, his vision blurring with tears he couldn't hold back anymore. The tree was covered in carvings. Not just theirs, though. He could see their initials and could see BRB 1968. Still visible though weathered and stretched by the tree's growth. But all around their carving, spiraling up the trunk, were other marks. Dates. Messages. Michael stood on shaking legs and moved closer, reaching out to touch the bark. 1973, still waiting, Mickey. 1980, built my first house today. Wish you could see it. 1985, got my contractor's license. Dad would be proud. 1992, Mom died. Could have used my best friend today. 2001, the world is scary. Wish I could talk to you about it. 2010, bought this land. Making sure our tree stays safe. 2018, I'm 60 now. Are you 62 wherever you are? 2023, my heart isn't good. The doctor says I should slow down. But I keep thinking you might come back, and I want to be here when you do. And then, the last one, carved carefully below all the others. 2025, if you're reading this, you kept your promise. Better late than never, Mickey. I waited like I said I would. See you on the other side. Tommy. Michael collapsed against the tree, his body shaking with sobs that came from somewhere so deep he didn't know he had that depth. 57 years. Tommy had waited 57 years. He had carved his life into this tree like a message in a bottle, hoping someday Michael would find it. He had bought land he probably couldn't afford just to protect a tree where 2 11-year-old boys had promised each other forever. And Michael had forgotten. Not completely, not entirely, but enough. Enough that he'd never come back. Enough that he'd let life pull him away from the promise that had mattered more than anything in the world on that rainy day in 1968. Michael didn't know how long he stayed there, pressed against the tree, his fingers tracing the carved words Tommy had left like breadcrumbs through a lifetime. The sun moved across the sky, light shifting through the leaves, casting patterns on the ground that reminded him of the shadows he and Tommy used to watch in their fort, making up stories about what shapes they could see. When the tears finally subsided enough for him to breathe normally, Michael sat back on the bench and really looked at what Tommy had created here. It wasn't just a tree. It was a shrine to friendship, to memory, to the kind of love that exists between people who see each other's souls before the world teaches them to hide. Near the base of the tree, partially hidden by moss, Michael noticed something else. A small metal box, the kind meant to be weatherproof, secured to the trunk with a bracket. His heart hammering, Michael approached it. There was a simple latch, no lock. Tommy had wanted this to be found. Inside were letters. Not the ones Michael had sent as a boy. Patricia had mentioned those were in Tommy's workshop. These were letters Tommy had written but never sent. The pages were yellowed with age, the dates spanning decades. Michael's hands trembled as he lifted them out carefully, afraid they might disintegrate at his touch. He sat back on the bench and began to read. Dear Mickey, I'm 17 today. Mom made my favorite cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, and she didn't mention that you should have been here to eat half of it before anyone else got a slice, the way you always did. But I thought about it. I wonder if you remember my birthday. I wonder if you remember me at all, or if Oregon made you into someone new, someone who doesn't think about Spring Valley anymore. I'm not angry. I want you to know that. I understand that life moves forward. I'm different too, probably. Taller. I'm 6 feet 2 inches now, can you believe it? You always said I'd be a giant. You were right about that. But some things don't change, Mickey. I still flash my lamp at night sometimes, 3 short bursts toward where your window used to be. The new family probably thinks their neighbor is crazy. Maybe I am. I'm still waiting. I promised I would, and I'm not good at breaking promises. Your friend, Tommy. Michael had to stop reading. He pressed the letter against his chest and looked up at the sky through the maple branches, trying to steady his breathing. 17. Tommy had been 17, almost a man, and still thinking about the friend who'd left when they were boys. He forced himself to continue, picking up another letter at random. Dear Mickey, it's 1985. I became a licensed contractor this year. I build houses now, real ones, not forts made of branches and stolen bedsheets. I'm good at it too. There's something about taking wood and nails and creating something that will shelter people, keep them warm, and give them a place to build their lives. It feels important. Meaningful. I built a house for the Patterson family last month. They have 2 boys, 8 and 10, and I watched them playing in the yard while I worked on the roof. They're best friends, those boys, the way we were. They have that same energy, that same unbreakable certainty that they'll be friends forever. I wanted to tell them that forever is more complicated than it seems when you're young. Those promises made on playgrounds don't always account for moving trucks and job transfers and the way distance can stretch a friendship until it's so thin you can see through it. But I didn't. Let them have their certainty. Let them believe in forever. Maybe for them it'll be true. I still check the mailbox sometimes, hoping for a letter. It's been years since the last one. I know they're not coming anymore. But hope is a hard habit to break. Still your friend, Tommy. There were dozens of them, letters spanning 30 years. Tommy's life is told in messages to a friend who wasn't there to receive them. He wrote about his father's death and about learning to run the carpentry business alone. He wrote about women he dated and relationships that never quite worked out, always with a sense that he was holding back something of himself. He wrote about Spring Valley changing, about watching the town grow and modernize, and about feeling like he was the keeper of something everyone else was willing to forget. And he wrote about the tree. Dear Mickey, the property around our tree went up for sale today. A developer wants to buy it, put in 8 new houses. They'd have to cut down the maple to do it. I can't let that happen. I know it's crazy. It's just a tree. Just wood and bark and leaves like a million other trees. But it's not, Mickey. You know it's not. It's the last physical proof that we existed, that our friendship was real, that those promises we made mattered. I'm buying the land. It'll take every dollar I've saved, and I'll probably have to get a loan for the rest. It's financially insane. My accountant looked at me like I'd lost my mind when I told him what I wanted to do. But I can't let them cut down our tree. I can't let them erase the place where you promised to come back. Because as long as that tree stands, with our initials carved into it, with BRB still visible in the bark, then the promise is still alive. You could still keep it. And I need to believe you will. I need to believe that someday I'll be sitting under this tree, old and gray, and I'll hear footsteps on the path and look up, and there you'll be. Older too, changed by time the way all of us are changed, but still Mickey underneath it all. Still my best friend. I don't know why I keep writing these letters. You'll never read them. But it helps somehow, pretending we're still in conversation. Pretending you're still my friend, even if only in my head. Forever yours, Tommy. Michael's tears fell on the paper, smudging Tommy's careful handwriting. He wanted to reach back through time, to shake his younger self, to scream at him to remember, to write more letters, to pick up the phone, to do anything except let this friendship slip away. But time only moved in one direction, and all the wanting in the world couldn't change what had already happened. The last letter in the box was dated February 13th, 2025. The day before Tommy died. Michael's hands shook so badly he could barely hold it. He knew he had to read it. Had to know Tommy's final thoughts. But he was terrified of what it might say. Would it be angry? Disappointed? Would it be the friend he remembered, or a stranger shaped by 57 years of waiting? He unfolded the paper and began to read. Dear Mickey, I'm 76 years old today. Not today, tomorrow, but I won't be able to walk to the tree tomorrow. My heart isn't cooperating lately, and the doctor says I need to rest. So I'm writing this tonight, sitting at my kitchen table, looking out the window toward where your house used to be. I think this might be my last letter to you. I can feel something changing in my body, something winding down. It doesn't scare me as much as I thought it would. I've lived a good life, Mickey. Not the life I thought I'd live when I was 11, not the life we planned in our fort during those last weeks before you left. But good nonetheless. I built 127 houses in Spring Valley. I know the exact number because I kept count. 127 families have homes because of me, because of the skills my father taught me and the work I put in day after day, year after year. That means something. I helped raise my niece, Patricia's daughter Sarah. She's a doctor now, saving lives. I like to think I had a small part in that, being there when Patricia's husband left, being the steady uncle who showed up to soccer games and school plays and taught Sarah that men could be counted on. I've been a good neighbor. I've helped people when they needed help. I've tried to make Spring Valley a little bit better for having lived here. But I never stopped missing you, Mickey. Not for a single day in 57 years. People think waiting is passive, something sad and small. But waiting has been my act of faith. Every day I chose to believe that you remembered, that somewhere out in the world you thought about me sometimes, about the friend you left behind, about the promise you made under a maple tree in the rain. I want you to know something important. I forgive you for not coming back. I forgave you a long time ago. Life is complicated. You had a family, a career, and responsibilities I know nothing about. You had reasons for staying away, and they were probably good ones. I understand that now in a way I couldn't when I was younger, when my feelings were hurt that the letters stopped coming. But more than that, I want to thank you. Because even though you weren't here, the memory of our friendship shaped my entire life. You taught me what it meant to really love someone, to see them and be seen, to have a friend who felt like family you chose for yourself. Every good thing I became, every kindness I showed, every moment of grace I managed, it all grew from the seed of what we had together. You were my first best friend, Mickey. And you were my last. There was never anyone else who came close. If you're reading this, it means you finally came back. It means you kept your promise, even if I'm not here to see it. That matters more than you know. It means I was right to wait. It means I was right to believe in you, in us, and in the friendship that shaped both our lives even across impossible distance. Don't be sad that we didn't get more time. Be grateful we got what we had. 5 years of perfect childhood friendship. That's more than most people get in an entire lifetime. We were lucky, Mickey. We were so lucky. Keep the tree safe if you can. It doesn't have to be forever. Nothing is forever except the love we carry for each other. But keep it for a while if you're able. Let it stand as proof that two boys once loved each other enough to carve their promise into something living, something that would outlast them both. I hope you had a beautiful life. I hope you found love and joy and meaning. I hope Oregon was everything your parents hoped it would be. I hope you thought of me sometimes, on rainy days or when you saw kids playing together, or for no reason at all except that the heart remembers what the mind forgets. I love you, Mickey. I always did. Not the way the world sometimes twists that phrase, but in the pure way children love before they learn to complicate it. You were my person, and I was yours, and nothing that happened after, no distance, no time, no silence, ever changed that. See you on the other side, best friend. I'll save you a seat under whatever trees grow wherever we're going next. Forever and always. Yours, Tommy. Michael couldn't breathe. The grief was too enormous, filling his chest until there was no room for air. He pressed Tommy's letter to his heart and sobbed, deep, wrenching sounds that came from the very core of him. He cried for the years they'd lost. He cried for the friend who'd waited a lifetime. He cried for the boy he'd been, who'd meant his promise with every fiber of his being but hadn't understood that meaning something and doing something are not the same. But underneath the grief, fighting through it like shoots of green through spring snow, was something else. Gratitude. Because Tommy had given him a gift in this final letter. Forgiveness. Understanding. Permission to be human, to have failed, to have gotten lost in the current of his own life. And more than that, confirmation that their friendship had mattered. That those 5 years had shaped Tommy just as they'd shaped Michael. That the love between two 11-year-old boys had been real and powerful and lasting, even when it existed only in memory and carved wood. Michael stayed at the tree until sunset, reading and rereading Tommy's letters, learning the life of his friend through words written to an empty page. As the light faded, he stood and placed his hand flat against the tree, over the place where their initials were carved, where 57 years of growth had tried but failed to erase their promise. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the tree, to Tommy, and to the universe. "I'm so sorry I took so long. I'm sorry you waited alone. But I'm here now. I kept the promise. Better late than never, right?" The wind rustled through the maple leaves, and for just a moment, Michael let himself believe it was Tommy answering, saying he understood, saying it was okay, saying that late was better than never, and that what mattered was not the timing but the keeping of faith. Michael didn't leave Spring Valley the next day or the day after. He extended his stay at the bed and breakfast, then extended it again. Margaret, the owner, was delighted. "Stay as long as you need," she told him. "Spring Valley has a way of holding on to people who belong here." He spent his days getting to know the town again, relearning its rhythms, and meeting people who'd known Tommy. Each person had a story, about a porch Tommy had fixed, a piece of furniture he'd built, or a kindness he'd shown. Michael collected these stories like precious stones, building a picture of who his friend had become in the years they'd been apart. He met Patricia at the yellow house on Elm Street. She was sorting through Tommy's belongings, deciding what to keep, what to sell, and what to donate. She was in her early 70s, with kind eyes and her brother's gentle smile. "I wondered if you'd come," she said when Michael introduced himself. "Tommy always said you would. Even at the end, even when it seemed impossible, he believed." "Can I help?" Michael asked. "With sorting his things?" Patricia looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "He'd like that." They worked together over the next week, going through a lifetime of accumulated memories. Tommy's workshop was full of tools organized with careful precision, half-finished projects that would never be completed, and that box Patricia had mentioned, the one with all of Michael's childhood letters. Michael sat on the workshop floor and read them, seeing his 11-year-old handwriting, remembering the boy who'd written these words about Oregon rain and new schools and missing his best friend. "He read these sometimes," Patricia said softly. When he was feeling low or when he needed to remember why he stayed in Spring Valley when he could have gone anywhere. They reminded him that he'd been loved once, deeply and completely, by someone who really saw him. He was loved, Michael said, his voice breaking. He is loved. I never stopped, Patricia. I got lost. In my life, in my grief after my wife died, in the dailiness of everything. But I never stopped loving him. Patricia sat down next to him on the workshop floor, this elderly woman in her brother's dust-covered space, and took Michael's hand. He knew that. Somehow he knew. He used to tell me that real friendship doesn't need constant contact to survive. It's like a river that goes underground. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it stopped flowing. They found plans Tommy had drawn for a treehouse, dated from last year. Detailed architectural drawings show a structure built around the maple tree's trunk, with windows and a small deck and stairs spiraling up. Patricia explained that Tommy had been planning to build it before his health declined, a gift for his great-niece's children, a place where another generation could make promises under the same branches. I'd like to build it, Michael said suddenly. The treehouse. If you'll let me. I'm an architect. I was an architect. I can read these plans and can make sure it's built safely. It would be a way to finish something Tommy started. To give him this last thing. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. He'd love that. He really would. So Michael stayed in Spring Valley, and he built the treehouse. His children thought he'd lost his mind at first, this 74-year-old man with arthritis and high blood pressure climbing ladders and sawing lumber. But when he explained why, when he told them the whole story, about Tommy, about the promise, about the 57 years, they understood. Emma flew out to help him for a week. David came for a long weekend, bringing his teenage sons, Tommy's great-great-nephews, who would never know their great-uncle but who hammered nails into his dream. It took 3 months to build. Michael worked slowly and carefully, making sure every board was perfect and every joint secure. He wasn't just building a treehouse. He was building a monument to friendship, to promises kept late, and to the love between two boys that had somehow survived everything the world had thrown at it. Other people helped too. The neighbors from Elm Street, who remembered Tommy and wanted to honor him. A few of Tommy's old clients, who'd loved the furniture he'd made for them. The pastor from the church Tommy had attended, who organized a workday where 15 volunteers. He apologized again and again for not coming sooner, even though Tommy's final letter had offered forgiveness. Some guilt, Michael learned, you carry not because you need to but because it connects you to what matters. Patricia became a close friend. They had dinner together every Sunday, sharing stories about Tommy, about childhood, and about the strange paths life takes. She gave Michael the box of his old letters and said Tommy would want him to have them back. Michael kept them in his living room, in a place of honor, proof that what they'd had was real. The treehouse became a gathering place for Spring Valley's children. Patricia's great-grandchildren played there first, but soon neighborhood kids discovered it, asking permission to climb up to look out at the town from that special vantage point. Michael always said yes. Tommy had waited alone for 57 years, but his gift to the community was a place where no child had to be alone, where friendships could be forged and promises made, and the magic of believing in forever could live on. On the first anniversary of Tommy's death, Michael organized a memorial. They planted dogwood trees around the maple, creating a grove, a sacred space. The whole town came. The mayor gave a speech about Tommy's contributions, about the 127 houses he'd built, and about the countless acts of kindness no one had kept track of but everyone remembered. Children read poems. The church choir sang. And Michael spoke, standing beneath the maple tree where everything had started, where two boys had promised each other forever and one of them had spent a lifetime keeping that promise alive. I came here a year ago, he began, his voice shaking but strong. Looking for my friend. I thought I was too late. I thought I'd lost my chance to tell him that I remembered, that our friendship had mattered, that the promise I made when I was 11 years old had stayed with me even when I'd forgotten I was still carrying it. He paused, looking at the faces gathered around him, seeing Tommy and their kindness, their patience, and their willingness to show up for a memorial to a man who never sought attention but whose absence left a hole in their community. But I learned something here. I learned that it's never too late to come home. Never too late to honor the people who shaped us. Never too late to keep a promise, even if the person we made it to isn't there to see us keep it. His voice broke, but he pushed through. Tommy taught me that friendship isn't about proximity. It's not about daily contact or constant communication. It's about choosing, every day, to hold space in your heart for someone. To believe in them even when you can't see them. To wait, not because you're stuck in the past, but because you know that what you had was real and true and worth preserving. Michael looked up at the tree, at the branches spreading wide overhead, and at the leaves rustling in the spring breeze. He waited 57 years for me. And I finally came home. I wish I'd come sooner. I wish I'd picked up the phone, written more letters, and found a way back before it was too late to see him again. That regret will live with me forever. But I also learned that being late is better than never. That showing up, even decades after you should have, still matters. That honoring the people we love, even after they're gone, is how we keep them alive. Not in some metaphorical sense, but really alive. Alive in our choices, in our actions, and in the way we move through the world. He pulled out the last letter Tommy had written, the one dated February 13th, and read the final paragraph aloud. "See you on the other side, best friend. I'll save you a seat under whatever trees grow wherever we're going next." Michael folded the letter carefully and looked out at the crowd. Tommy saved me a seat under this tree every day for 57 years. Now it's my turn to save him. To make sure this place he protected, this symbol of our friendship, stands for future generations. To teach children what he taught me, that promises matter, that love endures, and that the friendships we make when we're young can shape our entire lives if we're brave enough to honor them. The memorial ended with silence, everyone standing under the trees, feeling the weight and beauty of what Tommy had built through his patience, his faithfulness, and his refusal to let go of something precious. Michael lived in Spring Valley for another 8 years. He became what Tommy had been, a steady presence, a helpful neighbor, someone children knew they could count on. He taught woodworking classes at the community center, passing on skills Tommy had mastered. Woodworking classes at the community center, passing on skills Tommy had mastered. He helped maintain the path to the maple tree, making sure it stayed clear and safe. He filled albums with photos of children playing in the treehouse and sent them to Patricia so she could see the joy her brother had created. He made new friends but never called any of them his best friend. That title belonged to Tommy, and even death hadn't changed that. When Michael finally passed away at 82, peacefully in his sleep on a warm summer night, his children knew exactly what to do. They held his memorial at the maple tree, under the treehouse he'd built to honor his friend. They scattered his ashes around the tree's roots, letting him rest where he'd finally found his way home. And they added one final carving to the tree, just below all of Tommy's messages, just beside their original initials from 1968. 2033 Mickey came home. The promise is complete. May we all find our way back to the love that waits for us. The maple tree still stands in Spring Valley. The treehouse still hosts children who climb its stairs and look out at the town, and make promises they believe they'll keep forever. Sometimes they do. Sometimes life pulls them in different directions, scatters them across the country or the world, and decades pass before they remember. But the tree is there, waiting. A reminder carved into living with that promises matter, that friendship is sacred, that home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a person, or the memory of a person, or the love that persists even across impossible distances and incomprehensible years. The town maintains the grove now, the maple and dogwoods together, a park dedicated to Thomas Walker and Michael Chin. Friends who taught us that it's never too late to come home. School groups visit on field trips. Couples get married there. Parents bring children to show them what commitment looks like, what patience creates, and what love can build when it refuses to surrender to time. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light slants through the leaves just right, you can almost see them, two 11-year-old boys standing beneath a maple tree in the rain, making a promise they mean with their whole hearts, carving, BRB, into bark that will outlive them both, believing in forever because they don't yet know that forever comes in different forms than the ones we imagine when we're young. The story of Tommy and Mickey spread beyond Spring Valley. It became the kind of story people tell when they need to believe in something good, when the world feels too rushed and disconnected, and when they want to remember that some promises are worth keeping even if they take a lifetime to fulfill. And the life lesson carved into that tree, visible for anyone who looks close enough, remains simple and profound. The people we love shape us forever. The promises we make to them matter, even decades later. And it's never too late to find your way back home, to the places and people who made us who we are, to the friendships that defined us, to the love that waits patiently through all the years of forgetting, believing we'll remember, hoping we'll return. Because some promises are worth keeping, no matter how long it takes. And some friendships never end, they just wait, patient and faithful, carved into the heartwood of our lives, until we finally have the wisdom to honor what we've always known was sacred. The sun sets over Spring Valley, painting the sky in impossible colors, and the wind moves through the maple leaves with a sound like whispered promises, like two boys saying goodnight across the darkness between their windows, like forever learning to wait for us to catch up to its meaning. And somewhere in the space between memory and eternity, two friends sit together under an even greater tree, catching up on 57 years of living, laughing about the long wait, grateful they finally made it home to each other. The end.